Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Lesley Jane Seymour. I'm not Lesley Moore, though I would love to be just Lesley Moore. That would be good. I'm the editor-in-chief of More Magazine. As I say, it's Lesley Seymour, right? But Kathleen was getting it half right. Let me introduce to you our fantastic panel here, who I'm really excited about interviewing. And this is our panel. I have this wonderful group, which is called Creating Your Own Corporate Ladder. Is it better to go it alone? And I'm so lucky because, of course, I'm a corporate girl, but I get to talk to all these fabulous entrepreneurs. So let me just give you a run of show. Everybody here. Mary Edwards right here is the owner of Mary Edwards Winery, one of California's first women winemakers, and only the fourth woman to receive the James Beard Award for Best Wine, Beer, or Spirits Professional in the United States. Next is Marla Malcolm Beck, co-founder, CEO, and visionary behind Bluemercury. I'm sure you've all been there and gone through all those great products. Recently appointed to Harvard Business School Entrepreneur in Residence and named one of Goldman Sachs's 100 Most Intriguing Entrepreneurs for 2014. Kara Goldin is next. She's the founder and CEO of Hint Water, who is a former AOL exec turned successful entrepreneur. Yes, there is life after AOL. Many of you may have tasted the Hint Water on your table. If not, please raise a glass to her right now, or a bottle to her. Christina Tosi, chef, owner, and founder of Momofuku Milk Bar, recently dubbed one of the most exciting bakeries in the country by Bon Appetit magazine. And of course, the person I hate most for making those wonderful little cake balls that I can't stop eating and put all kinds of weight on me. So anyway, thank you for being here. We're so excited. So let's start talking about women entrepreneurs and why women go into being entrepreneurs. And I'm going to throw this out to all of you. So research is showing that women are starting businesses at record rates. Why, and what's going on, and why now? Does anybody want to jump in?
Sure. I mean, I think women are really creative problem solvers. And so if we see a problem, we have to go fix it.
Oh, yes.
And I think most businesses are started to solve a problem. I mean, one of the reasons I started Bluemercury was because I hated shopping at department stores for cosmetics. And so I think if we look at all the great businesses being started, these are women that have a burning desire to solve a problem.
It's funny. Women are always the problem solvers. I have a 19-year-old daughter who says, stop it. Stop solving my problem. Anybody else want to talk about women entrepreneurs while we're jumping in?
I think now more than ever the conversation exists, where before I was raised by a mother who pushed me and always told me that I could do whatever I put my mind to and whatever it was that I wanted to do. But I think now more so than ever it feels like the topic exists and the support exists and the sort of like yes you can dialogue exists to fall on every woman's ears, whether they were raised with that mentality or whether they're curious and wondering it. Aside, in addition to solving the problem, I think there's so much more support in the sort of yes, you can mentality that exists out there in every form of media and communication. And I think that's awesome.
Anybody else want to talk?
Yes. Add on that I think it's really for women, many women finding their purpose and finding what they're passionate about. So especially if they've entered the workforce and they are not happy for whatever reason, they're looking outside to figure out what it is that I want to do with all those hours that I'm working in a day. So I think more than ever, they're searching for that and oftentimes going and starting companies from that.
Mary?
So I think that if you have an innate entrepreneurial spirit, like I did whenever I didn't work for huge companies, I worked for kind of medium-sized companies, but I always took them on as though they were my own business. Mm-hmm. And so then I would get frustrated because there would be some stumbling block where all of a sudden I realized, oh, I'm putting all my passion into this and many hours, but really not totally in control. And so then I just realized I just need to do my own thing, because if I'm spending this kind of energy, I just need to let my passion run. So that's how I got into it.
Good. Now, Mary, do you want to talk a little bit about we're going to talk a little bit about gender discrimination. You have a couple of stories about when Mary got started, she ran into some gender-based discrimination in the wine area. So can you talk about that?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I kind of hate telling these stories because I just feel like we need to move past that and not be whining. Of course, winemaker's always a whine. So,
well,
but anyway, yes, I entered the wine business, imagine, my first job I got 41 years ago. I was at Davis before that. And there was only 3 women in the department at Davis with me studying for the master's. They both dropped by the wayside, and I was the only one to go forward and actually enter the wine business. So you can imagine, and I was in a male-dominated department that was very actually biased against women. They wanted me to come in. They really almost recruited me to come in the department. But then, oh, you want a job too after this? So that was the shock for them, and actually even the chairman of the department. This one incident where sometimes big companies like Gallo or Kendall Jackson come in to recruit into the department, and you have like a day with Gallo where everybody can go make an appointment and have an interview. I didn't want to interview with Gallo. I wanted to interview with this New Zealand company because I was young, married, but we didn't have a family. And so I went to the chairman to sign up, and he said, "Oh, you can't sign up." I said, "Why not?" He says, "You're a woman. They'll never hire you." And I went, "Well, then this can't be taking place." So then I went to the chancellor's office and got that little situation stopped. But there were also other discriminations even against men in the department, where in the old days what happened is somebody wanted to hire a winemaker, they would slip a letter to whatever professor that they liked in the department, and then that person, a guy, because there were no women, would put it in his back pocket and hand it out to his favorite, student who was, paying a lot of attention to him. And I said, well, this is really weird. Why don't we have a job board where all of the ads could be placed? So I also got that fixed. But I don't think of myself as a political, mover and shaker, but I just see what's right and what's wrong.
Egalitarianism wins again. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about networking, since a lot of people here are here to network today. The knowledgeable networkers that I know who are female say that women make 2 mistakes about networking in general. They say they come in and they try to be friends with all the people they're trying to network with, or they're actually in the wrong room. They're not with the right people. What do you guys have to say to that? And whoever wants to jump in, do you want to jump in down there?
Yeah, sure. I think that we, as women, have the tendency of wanting to come across as ourselves and come across as natural and not with ulterior motives. And I think with networking, the whole purpose of networking is to get yourself out there and put yourself out there. And I think sometimes we misinterpret getting ourselves out there by needing to make that relationship on a deeper level rather than making just the strictly professional relationship. I worked many years in a kitchen full of men, much like Mary, and I think in a really great way that helped push me from a networking standpoint, because they're all about economy of words, they're all about business and all about being straightforward. And I think a lot of times just being surrounded by that environment also really helps change your professional mindset of how you act and how you behave and how you network. So don't be afraid to just get right in, stick your hand out there, introduce yourselves, and remember that you're there for the same purpose that anyone else in the room is there networking. But being in the right room is certainly another point. Don't be afraid to be really direct about what your intentions are.
See, I don't really believe in networking. I believe in going after exactly what you want in a really focused way. So you find sort of whoever is at the top of the industry you're looking to work in and go after that person. And within the first year of starting Bluemercury, I called Leonard Lauder, who ran this huge company, and I said, I want to meet with you. And he said, okay. And so you'd be surprised at who will take a meeting with you if you're aggressive and go exactly for what you want. And so I believe you should really look at the resource you want and then go after that resource rather than put out a lot of networking feelers.
How many phone calls did you have to make? Was it one? And did you have to do that thing? You know what people say is they say, call at 6:30 in the morning when the assistant isn't there to pick up the phone and you'll get the executive. And I know people for whom that's worked. Did you go through the assistant? How did you get to him?
I mean, I had to go through his assistant, but I pitched on why he needed to talk to me. I had one store in Georgetown, and I was carrying makeup, and we were going to revolutionize the industry. So I think you really need to pitch and give people a reason to meet with you that's going to change what they're thinking or how they're thinking about their industry.
Cool.
I
All
think
right.
our industry is really small and very focused, and so we meet each other through all kinds of events we do, and it's kind of like you're always networking, if you will, but maybe not in the same way. I don't go to a meeting that's just a women's group where it's the purpose is networking. In fact, I've kind of avoided those because I feel like it's not really a good use of my time. But I've developed over 40 years and mentored many people, so I have a whole network of people in industry that if I'm thinking about something, like I'm just recruiting an associate winemaker, I just started calling all my friends, having lunch with them. And that's a little bit different than going to a meeting of 100 men and sitting in a room and having lunch and smoking cigars or whatever goes on. But so it's a little different kind of networking that we do in our industry.
Kara, do you want to talk about networking? Did you have to network for your business?
A couple things. I mean, I run a beverage company, right? And I think I found that networking inside my own industry was, frankly, not as interesting for me as it was being at women's events, being at events where I felt like there were connections there that would potentially enjoy Hint and would enjoy my story and would understand the purpose and mission that we're about. So I'm more likely to be found at those events versus at beverage industry events. I also find online services like LinkedIn, you can pretty much connect with anybody on LinkedIn, and people are very receptive to writing back. And particularly people, if you have a pitch and you say, I really want to get 5 minutes with you or 15 minutes with you. I spend a ton of time with other female entrepreneurs who catch me on LinkedIn, and it works. So.
And do you pay it forward? Do you all now, when people come up to you, do you mentor people? People in this room who might want to talk to you about something, how do they reach out to you?
I mean, for me, it's just emailing me through our internet site. I mentor entrepreneurs all the time with ideas, with how they get to their next resource. So absolutely, we all have to pay it forward. It's important for each and every one of us.
I think in my case, I have been for many years mentoring other women because my industry is really tough for women, especially women who want to have kids. And so since I'm one of the few in our industry as a woman who had a family or has a family, I really have tried over the years to help other women figure out how they can make this work with the long hours and harvest and bottling and vineyard work and everything else that goes on. So I'm happy to talk to people, but I've kind of focused myself on helping women in such a tough industry.
Can we talk a little bit about balance? Because that is one of the things that everybody says to me. The first thing, and I can't believe it's still an issue, but it is. I always say because they always say to me, how did you do it? How did you run this, this magazine and various magazines before that? And then my husband was full-time working, and what I say basically is, well, I would come home sometimes and want to rip my clothes off and run down the streets of my suburban neighborhood screaming. That was really the feeling, was I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to go insane. So do you want to talk about balance and how do you do it? Do you all have secrets to balance?
Yeah. I think it's all about the secrets that you create for yourself. I think it goes back to the point of creative problem solving, seeing a problem and being creative about what works for you and what works for the balance that you're trying to strike, and understanding that in anything that you work hard for, there are sacrifices that you make, but if you're working that hard, there should also be great rewards. So I think it's keeping yourself in check and being honest about the balance that you're looking for, but also understanding that it's going to require really creative problem solving to meet that balance for yourself. And sometimes it is fitting what you need to fit in a day so that you feel like you have a normal balance, and then working late at night when everyone else has gone to bed or what have you, or waking up really early, or just being creative about how you get anything and everything done. And not being afraid to ask for help, I think, is something that is probably something that I know I wasn't great at to begin with, but I realized that delegating and asking for help and communicating that is a huge part of striking the right balance.
So
Go ahead, Marla.
I have 3 kids, age 11, 9, and 7, and I started the business 15 years ago. So they grew up in the business with us, and everybody has their own way of doing things. So I just integrate my kids into growing the business. So they actually all have store numbers associated with them. So my first kid was store 5, my second was store 8, and my third was store 10 through 20. So, but they spent a lot of time in the car, and so I think everybody has their own way. Some people have to compartmentalize. It works best for them. For me, I just integrate it all together. And so I think the point, and I really believe this, you can have it all, but you have to do it in your own way, and every single person is different. So it's whatever's right for you, and there are no rules about it.
Now, did you say also is your husband's a big help?
Yeah, he is a big help. He's in the business with me, so that really helps because we balance. It's like a scale, sort of. I'm really into it and traveling, and he's at home, and then we flip the other way. So it makes it a little easier.
Kara?
So I have 4 kids, not to outdo you, but
Oh my God.
but
Can you
it's,
top this and have your own business? Go ahead.
and I've just found, like I think I'm actually doing a lot of benefit for my kids by having them watch their mom do something that she's passionate about. And, you know, my kids are my biggest supporters. Also, the first to go on and tell me when I'm doing something wrong on Twitter and Instagram, but that's a whole other topic. But they're, you know, they very much understand that this is something that I'm passionate about. And, you know, they'll go into stores and start turning labels on bottles to make sure that they're in the right direction. But as somebody said to me the other day, there's almost no way that my kids won't be entrepreneurs because they've grown up in a house where they've seen their mom raise money. They've seen their mom hire and fire people. They've seen their mom produce strategy and marketing plans. And it's, you know, they understand a lot about the business, and they're between the ages of 9 and 15. And which is awesome. And I'll also say, I mean, I get asked this question a lot about, you know, girls versus boys. And I actually think I'm doing the boys almost a bigger benefit, and for many people who may hire my sons one day, because my sons don't actually think that there's anything wrong with working for a woman. And which I think is, you know, pretty great, right? And they're 9 and 12. They're not ready to be hired yet, but they'll be there soon.
I'll poach them.
Yeah, exactly.
Another really important part of all this is that we sometimes forget that when you're an entrepreneur, when you have your own business, you're setting your own schedule. So if you want to take the time out to go to your child's, you know, school meeting or bake sale or whatever, I usually donate instead of bake, but anyway, you know, you have the time. You can set up your life around that. So I think that's really the important part that allows a family to exist in this in a hard driving business, because you, like you said, you can work late, you can work early, but you can find time for your family, which is really something that corporate America is still struggling with, except maybe some exceptional companies that we all know about.
Well, I'll just tell you one funny thing. When, you know, I ran several magazines and my daughter was little and my husband was in finance in Wall Street, and they would go down at Christmas time and, you know, watch him on the floor and everything. And at one point, my kids said to me, oh, well, you know, like somebody said, you know, who makes the most money in your family? And they were like, oh, it's my mom. And I was like, what do you mean? It's not me, it's your dad. And they said, well, he just sits on the phone all day. So any particular event that pushed you over the line into feeling that you wanted to do your own business? Was there a specific moment or crisis that made you say, I am out of corporate life? Or were you born an entrepreneur the day you grew up?
I think that for me, I had a lot of support from friends and family, both men and women. I was a consultant for many years when I was raising my kids, trying to balance things, as we said, which is my own little business. But my friends really said to me, you really ought to do something bigger. You know, we'll support you in this. And I really hadn't thought about it. It was hard. I had 2 young kids, one disabled. I had just been divorced, and I couldn't really think past, you know, making the house payments and doing my consulting. And they said, no, you need to go beyond that, and you need to think big, and we'll help you do it. So that to me was really, if I hadn't had that support, I don't know if I would have been able to at that point in time have the energy to really go forward. But it was a wonderful way to start.
Marla?
I mean, I think for me, I always knew I wanted to lead a big organization, and I was in private equity, and I was young, I was in my 20s, and I realized that no one was going to make me CEO. The only way I was going to be able to do that is if I started my own company. And so for me, it was just this driving desire that I knew that I could be a great leader, and no one was just going to hand it to me on a platter, that I would have to create it on my own. And so I think a lot of women do that too. They just get tired of seeing the ladder and how long it takes. I mean, even at this age, I probably, if I were in a Fortune 500, wouldn't be in a leadership role that I felt was right for me. And so for me, it was just taking everything into my own hands.
Kara?
So I decided to start Hint because I couldn't find a water that had flavor in it that didn't have sweeteners in it. And that was just a little over 9 years ago. And again, I came at it from a consumer perspective. I was working at AOL for 7 years running their e-commerce group and was not, I didn't dream of running a beverage company. I, as a little kid, wasn't having dreams of, starting the next Red Bull or whatever. But I just wanted this product. So I took it to Whole Foods and got it on the shelf at Whole Foods in San Francisco. And the first 10 cases sold out in a week. And I realized that I actually had something. And then I thought, well, everyone says you can't do this company because, Coke and Pepsi, they're big and they're powerful, and and you have no beverage experience. And so I thought, well, maybe they're kind of right. That was my naysayer moment. And somebody introduced me to somebody quite senior at Coke and said, you should really talk to this person because maybe you can give them the idea and then you'll have the product and you can drink it. So I called this gentleman at Coke and I said, I live in San Francisco. I have this great idea for a product and it's a flavored water without sweeteners. And dead silence on the phone, and then he said to me in this nice Southern accent, "Sweetie, Americans like sweet." Ooh. And I didn't hear what he said for the next 5 minutes because I was like, did he just call me sweetie over the phone? Like, I was just like, what is he talking about? And then he lectured me on how San Francisco is, really kind of earthy crunchy, and there's all this, and I thought, he really doesn't get it. And so I hung up the phone and I thought, they're not about what I'm talking about. And if I don't do this company, no one's going to do it. And that today was probably the best thing that anyone ever said to me. And yet it seemed like such a negative thing at the time. So,
Christina? I love that story. That's awesome. I opened Milk Bar largely because I felt like I had a voice in the industry that didn't exist. So part of it was sort of filling a void that I felt didn't exist. I think I was always a sort of natural-born entrepreneur. More than anything, I think the thing that really drove me to take this step, aside from the void that I felt existed in the bakery space, everyone was just sort of doing cupcakes the same flavor, chocolate chip cookies, which are all great, but I thought, well, we need to push beyond this boundary in the culinary industry, specifically in the sort of dessert space, and there's so much creativity out there, but no one seems to be pushing themselves, or no one seems to be challenging what people might embrace. And I think beyond that, what pushed me was working in different kitchens for different chefs, and I would keep journals of my days, and the thing that always struck me in a bad way was the leadership out there and the lack of leadership, or the disappointment in leaders and leadership and the decisions they made. And I would keep journals of what I liked about leadership styles that I worked for and what I hated about leadership styles that I worked for, and that really drove me as I sort of grew within the space and was trying to come up with my own voice. That drove me to also say, I don't want to just fill a void for what doesn't exist on the shelves of a bakery. I also want to fill the void of what doesn't exist from a leadership standpoint and what someone that runs a culinary business can be to the consumer, but also to the team that works behind it.
Boy, did you fill it. So one last question for you all. If there are entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about running their own business out there, can you each give one tip to take away? Like, what's the biggest word of wisdom that you can give everybody here beyond, I mean, I know when we do so much at More with entrepreneurs, and you mentioned the naysayers, you know, never let the naysayers be the ones who have the last word. I mean, that I can tell you that from interviewing 300 different entrepreneurs. Do you guys have any quick thoughts? We've got 2.5 minutes.
It's hard to be quick, but I think the word passion has come up a lot today, and I think that is a very important word. If you have the passion, you can do anything. So don't let other people make your agenda for you.
Good.
Figure out what you want to do and go for it. And don't let anyone stand in your way. Find the tools to do it, and you will. Just believe in your product, whatever that might be, and you will find people who want to purchase your services, buy your desserts, buy your wine, because they will see the passion in you in your product. And people love that because our world is so full of just artificiality today. Mm-hmm. So that would be my words.
Quickly.
My advice is get in the game. Your business plan is going to change. You don't need to have a fully baked idea, but once you start, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to figure it out. So Bluemercury started as e-commerce. We were too early. We shifted to stores, and now we're both e-commerce and stores. And so once you get in, you figure it all out if you're passionate about the topic. But if you're standing on the sideline, you can stay on that sideline for years and years and years.
That's a good point. I think a lot of us sit there and wait for the perfect thing. Okay, Kara?
Trust yourself. I think that that's the biggest thing. And as I look back in history, when I made the biggest mistakes, I didn't trust myself. Mm-hmm. And I think going and hiring industry people who really are supposed to know exactly what's going on versus you just trusting your gut is a really, really important point.
I mimic all of yours, all of your feedback. Mine, the one thing that I always teach my team and that I always remind myself is that failure is okay. In fact, it's most likely inevitable. Missteps are going to happen. It's how you embrace them and recover from them with the same passion and the same gusto that you made the decision. That really helps keep you moving in the right direction, saying, okay, I'm going to start e-commerce. This isn't working. I need to change paths, and remembering that it's okay to make those failures along the way. It's about how you really recover from them and push yourself in the right direction from there. That will really help keep you on the right track as an entrepreneur.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. And I think the number one thing we learned is don't let anybody call you sweetie.